everyone. Welcome to ReForm, where our goal is to engage, educate, and inspire. I am so excited today to introduce you guys to Paint the Void. They're an amazing team. They're all right next to me on the screen right now. Give everyone a little wave. Hi. So Paint the Void is a fiscally sponsored 501c3 not-for-profit organization born from an idea to help keep artists engaged and paid as guardians of hope and beauty in a time of fear and uncertainty. Public art organizations Building 180 and Art for Civil Discourse, ACD, joined forces to raise funds for artist grants as a response to COVID-19. Since mid-April 2020, they have facilitated and supported the creation of over 100 murals in San Francisco, Berkeley, and Oakland, funding over 95 artists. Paint the Void is funded through small individual donations, grants, and collaborations with larger institutions for permanent murals, and including me. You guys hired me, and that was amazing, especially when I didn't know where my next check was coming from. So this has been even personally impactful to me, and that's why I'm so excited to have you guys here. Let's just get us started. I'm going to have each of you introduce yourselves and tell us just a little bit about who you are and what got you involved in the arts community. And let's just start with whoever's on the top next to me. I think that's Inga.
Hi, my name is Inga Bard. I am an artist, and I'm also the founder of Art for Civil Discourse. I've been an artist all of my life, and at some point I realized that I have capacity to also help other artists navigate this world. And I have some resources and some access and some just foundation to be able to help other artists. And so I started Art for Civil Discourse. And then Meredith hit me up and pitched Paint the Void. And so we joined forces, and here we are.
Love it. And on that segue, Meredith.
Hello. I'm Meredith Winner. I am the co-founder of Paint the Void and also of Building 180. Shannon and I founded Building 180 together, and we are a for-profit arts company that supports artists throughout the Bay, connecting them to opportunities. I have also been an artist my whole life, but I always wanted to be in the business of art to help artists, support them from a more organizational standpoint. So we do all the nitty-gritty boring stuff, which is contracts and insurance.
Artists need that help. They do.
So I love working with artists. I just am a huge art appreciator and art supporter, and that's just been my life's calling.
I love it. Well, thank you. And Veronica.
Hi, I'm Veronica. I actually have worked in music for most of my career, but I found Paint the Void since in May, actually, after it had already started. Nora Brune's mural I saw in an article, and I just reached out to them to help out. And I've been working on board with them as a project manager and artist liaison since then. And it's been a crazy ride, and I'm so happy to have joined the team.
Nice. Shannon.
Thank you so much for having us, Tracy. I think Inga and Meredith sort of introduced me already. Co-founder of Paint the Void, founder of Building 180. I too have a similar story, and studio artist, love creating art and just love creating crafts. And in doing so, I think I realized that I may be better at the facilitation and logistics behind it, and really just love to cheerlead and support a ton of artists. And so therefore started Building 180 and now Paint the Void. My favorite part really actually in reflecting on all of this and what we've created is the community that we've created with all of the artists and all the people on this call. That to me, I think is something that's so incredible, and how things work and how things are built and how artists survive and create positivity in a time like this and throughout history. So yeah, I'm just a huge art advocate and love working with really interesting and cool people and seeing new things come to life.
Perfect. Love it. And last but not least, Lisa.
Hi, my name is Lisa Mortman. I'm a photographer. Pretty much always have been since throwaways were a thing. I really felt aligned with this project. I saw it first on social media through mutual friends. Me and Shannon have worked together in production before, and at the time of COVID, where we were kind of told as artists to, sit still and let the essential workers do their thing, I felt stunted. And when I saw that they were going out and starting to paint boarded up murals, I was inspired. I was looking for an excuse to photograph something and get out of my apartment. And so I kind of just jumped right in, and I immediately felt the impact of this work. And as a photographer, my role has really been to come alongside individuals, entrepreneurs, businesses, artists, to help them express what it is they do in this world and what it is they're offering. And so I felt like it was just the perfect opportunity to get involved and help Paint the Void express what they're doing. And I think it is one of the most incredible projects I've ever seen and been a part of. So really humbled to be alongside these women. They're badass.
I love it. I mean, honestly, the work that you guys have done, and really just like being born out of COVID, is inspiring. I know that you guys just kind of came together and saw the need and filled it up. But what was that experience like for you guys? I mean, I know it just kind of took off. Does anyone want to share?
I think what's one of the crazy things is that we actually started Paint the Void all remotely because we had been sheltered in place in various parts of the country. I was in New York, Shannon was in Tahoe, Inga was at home in Berkeley, and Lisa was in Oakland, and similar to Veronica was in San Francisco. So we were all separate, and it was amazing to see that we were able to organize and get people out into the streets to making murals without us having to be there. And it became this very near and dear initiative to so many people, especially the artists that we were supporting and the business owners too, who just had never experienced something like this before. So it was really incredible. And I think it also just speaks to, we hope that we can help educate other people of how to do this in other cities.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something that you just said, like the community and even the businesses. I think Paint the Void, yes, we talk about the artists and the grants that you're giving artists to do this work, but the impact on the community is, I think, one of the biggest things of Paint the Void. The experience of people who live where they're living and to see something come up. I think, Lisa, I know you're on site often. I mean, how do you feel like when people come up? I mean, most people are very excited. Don't you think that's kind of impact is on the community?
Well, that's the thing is, it's been really hard. You can't put in numbers what impact is and feels like. That's been one of the hardest things for us, and we're talking about it right now, is like, how do we actually show people who aren't experiencing it for themselves how impactful it is? And I can really still at this point only describe it as like this feeling, and you saw it in body language, you saw it in people's physical responses to the work, to meeting the artist. I think one of the things I noticed the most is the highlight wasn't just the art itself, but seeing artists in action. Because before, street art was something that usually came up kind of under the radar. Either at night it would pop up, you'd wake up and all of a sudden there's this thing there, or in general, people were in their busy days, so they didn't actually pause to engage or understand who the artist was or why this thing was being created. And I just think the awareness was, everyone was on alert. So it was there, and people were able to actually engage with another human, which was also rare during shelter in place. And to see creatives kind of, play this role of guardian over hope and optimism, and just being able to express in a healthy manner what was very real for those artists at the time and for the community in that neighborhood. So for me, I felt like witnessing the kind of the unique engagement between the people who lived in the community and the artists themselves, I think was for me the proof of impact, because people would, be on their day walks and they'd have this vibe and energy about them, and then they'd walk by and they would just, stand taller and eyes would be brighter, and they would, maybe for the first time that day, and they would laugh with the artist or ask questions, and and that impact lasted, I'm sure, throughout their whole day, if not every day that they walked by that piece of art. And so it was a really incredible thing to see, for sure. And the artists, they have incredible stories.
I mean, as an artist myself who did, I did one in San Francisco for you guys and one in Oakland. It was really interesting to see people walk by, ask questions. People were sitting outside of their windows, in the high rise, or, it wasn't a high rise, but the apartment building, watching and encouraging. And then also the amount of messages I would get afterwards of people who just say, I walk past this every day. And it just to see color in the block on such a hard time has made such an impact. One thing I want to talk about with you guys, I know I want to just recognize that this is a sea of white faces. But one of the things that I love about Paint the Void, and one of the reasons I wanted you here on ReForm, is that I know that you guys have been very focused, or gals, we're all ladies here. You guys have been really focused on, equitable, reaching out to all types of people. It's not just one type of artist. And I think the other thing that you guys have done really well of is finding artists that are a part of the communities that you're asking them to paint in. And I think that is really important. You kind of talked, Lisa, about, public art being like these things that happen, in the dark, in the shadows, and it's all territory based. But I think you guys kind of paid attention to that in reaching out to your artists and being like, okay, where are you close to? Part of that was logistical, I know, with COVID, but a part of that too, it's like, okay, you live in this community. Do you want to give back? Does anyone want to talk on that kind of concept, or anyone?
I'd be happy to chime in. I can chime in.
Yeah.
I think something to really note and talk about too is that this came up as a quick idea in response to COVID, towards the end of March, like very beginning, towards the end of March, early April. And I think all of us here on the interview are, doers and shakers and movers, and we wanted to do something. Lisa expressed just being bored, wanting to get out and photograph things, and I think that all of us with our own skill set really wanted to make an impact. And it came with the idea of originally just doing 10 murals, and now we've done over 100, which is incredible. And I think that something to note about that was, the logistics of COVID in response to your question of keeping things local and really being intuitive and intentional about the type of artists that we wanted out there. But something that was also really important to us is that we weren't trying to curate the streets ourselves. We really just wanted it to be a work of art and a gift to the community and also a gift to the artists. So local was really important to us from the beginning. Meredith and I had sort of come up with the idea, or somebody approached us after seeing a San article, I think from San Francisco Gate, that said apocalyptic chic and how all these boards were going up on Valencia, and reached out to us, some friends, being like, you work with tons of muralists. Is there any way that we can beautify the streets? And we thought that was an incredible way to fundraise money for artists. And in that time, it was definitely because of shelter and home, we wanted local artists to work on the boards. But also Building 180, our company prior to Paint the Void and still now our for-profit company, really does focus on hiring local artists. We think that, and we do focus on public artwork too, and working with local artists and allowing them to express themselves, being a part of that community, and public art being, a civic engagement and a statement and a conversation starter. Working with local communities is something that's really, really important to us at Building 180 and Paint the Void. And so that was always core to it. I think COVID helped, it really helped push that along. We didn't want people to travel. We wanted it to be able to walk to the site and make sure that everybody was safe. And again, have a conversation from that community, because every community experienced this differently. Every person experienced this differently. But we were also in this together. So it was definitely a conversation starter. And then I think as we grew from 10 murals to 100 murals, which I think Lisa threw out earlier on in the conversation, we're like, hell no, we're not doing 100 murals. That's insane. And now we're there, and we're going for 150 pretty much. So that's pretty exciting. But yeah, as we grew, and as everyone experienced, especially in the United States of America, there's been incredible changes throughout March, or since March, with George Floyd's murder, with in California with climate change, with the fires. There's been so much turmoil, so much change, and that's been reflected in a lot of the artwork. And that really also called Paint the Void to reflect ourselves as a group of white women. What are we doing? What is the statement we're making? We're not just 10 murals, we're now 100 murals, and we're making a big impact. And so we actually took it upon ourselves after all of the protests sort of in Oakland started shutting down. And we took it upon ourselves to really reflect and look at the numbers of the artists that we were supporting. We actually thought that we were supporting mostly women, and we weren't. A lot of our money was getting funded to white males. And so we took it upon ourselves to pause all funding and redirect our funds specifically to people of color. We're also looking towards Indigenous artists, and really just looking at different communities that we hadn't served. In the beginning, it was like, go, go, go. And it still kind of is, it hasn't been that long since we've been in an organization. But because of the intent and where we really want to place our work, we had to stop a little bit and slow down and be more intentional with our money. So I think it has been a really incredible learning lesson as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, as a nonprofit. Like, how do we spend our money, and what impact are we making? And even when we had 10 murals, to think that we weren't making an impact wasn't particularly that smart. Like, any little thing that we do in the world does make an impact and has this ripple effect. And I think that this past year, for me especially, and I think for all of us girls at Paint the Void, has been a really important learning lesson on, like, how do we distribute funds, who do we represent, and what are those conversations that we're having.
I mean, I think, honestly, it's so refreshing to see a company, especially in the arts, but, everywhere, everybody's doing this thought process, right? I mean, I hope they are. They should be. But, especially, as a group of women, which is already in any sort of industry, you're leading the industry, and that's rare to begin with. But to take that step too and go, okay, well, we thought we were doing this, but actually let's look really hard, let's pause, and let's reevaluate, and then push, the world we want to see. I mean, I really have to applaud you guys for a second, take a second and just be like, wow, that is, and I know how quickly you guys are working. I know how quickly everything goes up, but I think that kind of intention there is really important. And it does change, even the messaging of what's going on, like things that we may not think about as white female artists. When you invite somebody who is of color or Black or queer or whoever they may be, they're going to have a point of view that deserves a voice. And then so I do really want to applaud you guys for that.
I do want to add one thing that, and I want to thank all of our followers on social media. A lot of people reached out to us and held us accountable. And I think that we had some really serious and hard conversations internally and publicly. And although that was difficult and hard to do, I want to thank everyone who did do that, because that held us accountable for what we were doing. And I think that right now is also a really important time to have those hard conversations and uncomfortable conversations. And I think that we definitely reflected on that. It was a priority in the beginning to, be diverse with our funding, but our followers and our fans and all the artists we work with also held us accountable. And I think that that's like what I've really learned in 2020 and hopefully moving into 2021 is that we are a community and we do better when we listen to each other. So I just wanted to thank anybody listening for calling us out. Keep doing it.
I mean, that's great. And the ability to take that moment, I think, especially as white people, it is our job, as whiteness everywhere. It's our job to take those moments and to listen and to respond and think and make action. That's kind of what ReForm is about as well. It's to educate and inspire and take those next steps. So, I mean, that's one of the reasons I'm very excited to have you guys here. And yeah, I mean, these aren't easy conversations, but honestly, I think some of the best work I've seen come out of Paint the Void are from your artists who maybe haven't had that chance. And then, for an artist, like having that chance is really huge. Even myself, I had never done murals before, and you guys were like, go for it. And it really, that kind of encouragement can mean the difference to somebody keeping on with their career or deciding it's time to get a job somewhere else. And I think also one thing you said, it's like, oh, it was just going to be 10 murals. And then, what's the impact of that? But really, I find the real impact when you say yes to an artist is huge. It can change their life. So 10, 150, however many murals, taking that opportunity to say yes to people of color, to Black people, to queer people, to not gender nonconforming artists, to artists of every creed and color is a real powerful moment. So I'm real proud of you guys. Going forward, I want to kind of ask you guys each questions to hear from some of us who have been a little more quiet. So I'm going to start with, let me find it on my list. Okay, Veronica, you are involved deeply in the day-to-day operations. Do you remember any specific experiences of working on a location that you wished was done differently? Or if you were to do it over again, what would you change?
I would say throughout the whole process, we were constantly learning about how things should be done, and everything was happening so fast that it was definitely a learning process throughout. I'm still pretty new to the art world, I would say. This is my first major project in it. I've worked in similar roles adjacent in music, but doing murals this is the first time I've ever done something like this. So I think what I've learned most is just how many players are involved in a mural project really changes how it's going to go down. And we've had a bunch of fantastic partners, like to give a shout out to Varsity Painting. They have been so crucial in helping us. They primed many of our walls, which is just helped support the artists so much. It's called buffing in the graffiti world, I believe, but it just like saves them like a whole day of work. And I got to meet one of the painters who was there who painted our Project Reckless wall, and the painters that they sent out are actually volunteer also. So that painter drove out from like Vallejo or something to San Francisco at like 9 a.m. to like buff this wall for us. And I was like, holy shit, like I was just so happy to be there and meet him and just like learn about this other like person who's like involved in supporting us. And it really made me appreciate them. And I think like having those extra players to support us has been like so crucial, and being on site with them was really like valuable to us and to me personally, because it was just so nice to see that support. But also knowing that we have to protect artists when we are hiring them in terms of like revisions and things like that. Like a lot of business owners like want to take advantage of having this free mural. They like have their own vision, but we are artists creative freedom. And you know, I think it was important for us to let the businesses know like how much work it goes into each draft, into each like idea, and like to go back and revise. We wanted to protect artists there and really have them have their voice, like have it work for both parties, but really make it so it's the artists that they select and like they can still have their voice when creating their mural.
I mean, that has to be so complicated to balance. You know, you're balancing the artist vision, you're balancing the community they're in, you're balancing the business. That has to be such a juggling act.
Definitely. And there's a lot of personalities at play, and you kind of have to be the person in between of like mediating between the different ideas and like of expectations of people. So it's definitely a fine line to walk, but obviously there's a huge payoff, so it's totally worth it.
I love it. Well, thank you. Let's see, Inga, what is the biggest challenge for Paint the Void at the moment?
Ooh, well, at the moment it's funding, definitely. Funding, because of the support of our communities, mostly in San Francisco, but also all across the United States, we were able to raise funds in the very beginning to create all these murals, right? That's why we were able to do not 10, but 100, because so many people chipped in to donate, to support local artists, and also to make the streets of San Francisco apocalyptic chic in the most beautiful way. And it's been a really long year. A lot of different organizations, a lot of different causes have needed support, and we have stopped crowdfunding when the protests started happening, because a lot of those causes needed support and still do and always will. And then the election was happening. And so at this time, most of our funding comes from grants. We just got a grant from the city of San Francisco to create 30 murals, which is so wonderful that they carved out a budget for that. And yeah, that is the thing that is going to enable the next set of murals to happen. And what we're working on right now is to create a financial report to show to our donors what we have done with the money. And we've been looking at the numbers, and it's incredible that we were able to accomplish so much with so little.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something I'd like you to expand upon just a little bit for others who may be thinking they want to do something like this and don't know where to start. I think the answer, or what I'm hearing, is you just start. And then it's like a proof of concept. Like you're like, okay, it works, and look at it's working. And then I think from there, you can kind of see it snowball. I mean, is that good advice for somebody who wants to get started?
a really big reason that we were able to make this work is because there were 3 of us in the beginning.
Yeah.
And all three of us just kind of like came together in this like synchronistic, magical way where we just kind of like complemented each other's strengths and weaknesses. Meredith did all the legal paperwork, which I have no idea how to do or even read. It's just like French to me. Shannon is just like amazing at developing relationships and following up with people and getting people excited about the project. And I did a lot of the fundraising in the early days, and we all kind of tag teamed a lot of the internal things. And then Lisa came on the project. She was like, "Hey, you guys are doing something really cool. I want to photograph it." And she really got our Instagram going. And it's because of all the photographs and being able to like show what we've done, and her like taking the lead on the Instagram, that people began to really notice in the digital world. People could see it on the street, but not a lot of people are hanging out on the street these days. And then at some point in the summer, all the four of us were just getting kind of burnt out because it was a lot. We were doing a lot, and Veronica just like swooped right in at that perfect moment with like fresh energy and was just like, "Oh yeah, we got this. I can do this. You can do it. Let's do it. Let's keep doing it."
Well, I think that's a great lesson to lean on your community. I think a lot of times, myself included, I have this like, I'm just going to get it done all by myself. And you burn out.
Something like this, just need all the, and we've also like learned to ask for help from people from the outside, to ask for volunteers. And there's a lot more people working on this than just us. There's people that have come together to take photos, to create videos. Right now, we have a couple more project managers helping us to just kind of like with the daily grind. There's just so many different things that other people have helped with. That it really does take a village.
Shout out to Sue Queck who made our beautiful map that's on our website.
Yeah,
that's amazing. I mean, and I think when you have that energy, and it's great that it was kind of organic, but now to see the community wrap around it, it's just a really, really beautiful thing, and it encouraged, I think, to ask those questions, ask for help. It's good advice. Thank you, Inga. Next,
and I want to add a couple of cents. Can I add a couple of cents about another challenge that we had? We kind of talked about it earlier, but I think systemic racism is really a challenge for artists. And as Shannon was saying earlier, in the beginning, we all were like convinced that we're mostly hiring women artists, and then realized, well, we're not. And then when the protests started happening and we made a strong kind of decision to like pause all funding to like white artists and to make sure that we are representing of people of color. And we started looking for, we added some demographic questions to our artist intake form. And it just became glaring obvious that like most artists that are applying are still white, And the reason that is because of systemic racism. Like people just have more like opportunity to even become an artist and have more time to spend to perfect the skill, the craft, because they say it takes
the more encouragement
hours to learn how to do something well. So there's just a lot less artists of color to begin with. Which is.
But I think, one of the beautiful things is seeing you guys prioritize that encourages the next generation, honestly, and even down to the social media posts you guys are doing, seeing our artists of color, our Black people, our queer people front and center, that really does make a huge difference in the communities you're in. And especially a place as diverse as the Bay Area. I think it's really smart, and thank you for elaborating on that, because it's a difficult thing for sure. Okay, so moving along, since we're talking kind of about social justice initiatives, I want to go into this question. So you've had a couple of initiatives within Paint the Void, from showing solidarity with the BLM movement to involving our frontline nurses and doctors. Are these initiatives coming from you? I mean, it sounds like in our conversations there is a lot of self-thinking. But are they mostly internal, or are you working in tandem with your participating artists? Are you talking to your social media? It seems like where are these initiatives coming from? And anyone can answer.
I think it's kind of a blend.
Go ahead.
I think it's a blend. As a team, we're absolutely reflective. We're constantly bouncing off ideas. I mean, we are always inspired. What we have the capacity to is different. You know, it's always like we bite off more than we can chew. So we have all these ideas and things, but the reason I think that a lot of them do come to fruition is because of mutual interests and goals with our community. And so the nurses, for example, you know, they came to us and just expressed how it has impacted their days, seeing the art on their way to go work at the hospital, and how that to them felt essential for their well-being, which was huge. You know, here we are trying to pretty much advocate for art being an essential role in the community, and you know, one of the most essential workers had, you know, just kind of validated that for us. And then similarly with the protest, like, it was something that it happened. We care. We are genuinely there with it, and so being able to just collaborate with other people within the community who are showing support or expressing their love, and just actually engaging and continuing conversations outside of just the five of us is what I think, at least from my perspective, seen it just continuously evolve and new ideas come in and new opportunities present themselves. So from my perspective, I think it's definitely a balance of it's genuinely within our hearts, but we would not be able to do it without the ability of other people coming in with a similar passion and goals, because we wouldn't have the capacity otherwise.
Totally. I mean, I think being open and listening, this is what I'm hearing as a reoccurring theme with Paint the Void, is that you guys are very open to the community. You want to encourage, and just feeling it out. And even in your heart, you're seeing what's going on. But being kind of almost even vulnerable, open, is not words we usually, you know, equate with a big business. Or, I mean, you're not big business, but you know what I'm saying. But I think that's one of the beautiful things, especially being as a female-run situation. I think it's really amazing that you guys are so open to it, especially as a public arts organization. So, does anyone want to?
I think that's something that's been, to like elaborate on.
Go ahead, Shannon.
To add to what Lisa said, and something that you had touched upon earlier, Tracy, I feel like you said that, you know, just saying yes to artists is something that's been really cool to watch with Paint the Void. And having run a for-profit art company where we're working with a lot of designers and architects, and pre-built ideas and bringing that into the life, it's incredible. And that's, you know, one form of incredible way of bringing art into the world. But I think this project specifically, Veronica touched on it too, is really allowing artists to have their own creative freedom and saying yes to artists. And so to Lisa's point, I think we're definitely have a ton of ideas ourselves, and they do align with a lot of artists' ideas. But when artists or people reach out to us on Instagram or on email and they have these ideas, such as the UCSF emergency room doctors wanting to paint a mural, what we're really good at and have, you know, been able to do with this platform is really just engage all of the different people. You know, we had this UCSF doctor reach out. We had a huge wall that was too big for one muralist to paint. So we're able to find a muralist that could do like a black and white coloring book type of mural, and then partner everyone. And so as facilitators and as listeners, to your point, hearing people and their ideas, some ideas that have been shut down before, or working with artists who have never done murals before, you know, this is a whole voluntary effort of creation, and allowing those things to come to life is so cool. And so I think we definitely come up with a lot of ideas. We hope to facilitate as many as possible, but the exciting thing for me is like reading those new ideas and trying to figure out ways to do that with this funding, because luckily as a nonprofit, we have the opportunity to not have to listen to other people telling us what to do. We have this opportunity to work with artists and with our team to come up with new ideas. We just had a girl reach out to us from Sweden who wanted to see if we could do like a global project with her, and she sits inside of windows and she asks people to come up to the window and she paints them from inside, and she paints them on the window front, like on the storefront. And so the people like schedule our meetings with her, and they'll come stand outside. And I was like, that would be so cool if there was a way that we could like either have her do through Zoom and post it on something. But anyways, I mean, so many working in this field, you work with so many creative people and there's so many ideas and there's not enough time or money to always celebrate them. So that's been a really cool part, I think, of Paint the Void, is like celebrating and really focusing on these ideas that don't always get to be played out.
I love it. And on that note, I'm going to direct towards Meredith. I know that for many years you've been focused on championing. Can I say that word? Okay. I know for that many years you've been focused on championing artists. In terms of Paint the Void, what are you guys looking for when pairing artists and spaces? Is it really just organic like we've been talking, or is there anything else that you guys are kind of focused on?
I think that in the beginning, it was a little different than how it's evolved. In the beginning, we were reaching out to our existing network of artists at the very beginning because we had no funding. We were trying to get artists excited about it. We didn't really know what we were doing yet, and we're still learning every day. But we reached out to artists such as yourself and a few others, Max Ehrman. We've had relationship with him over the years, just getting people on the ground and excited about it. To really be the first kind of case test of if this was even feasible. And from there, we've developed an artist intake form that we have distributed far and wide via our social media channels, individually and in the business channels as well. And what's incredible is the amount of artists that have signed up. I think to date, it's over 2,000 artists have signed up, which is crazy to even think that there's that many artists still in San Francisco, particularly now when it feels like so many people are leaving the city and that San Francisco's and the Bay Area has become this really unsustainable place to live just because it's so expensive and has been pushing artists out for so long. That to see that many artists come and sign up was really this amazingly hopeful experience. Also a very challenging experience just because having to sift through this many really thoughtful applications, and incredible artists have signed up. And of course, there's only so much space that we can accommodate. So it became a process of trying to be as hyper local as we could, because that really does help it really does help each neighborhood have this sense of civic pride and have this sense of community, even a more developed sense of community when the artist is actually residing in the neighborhood that they're working in. And from there, we've tried to keep that near and dear, and of course are now prioritizing artists of color, other marginalized artist groups, to try to be as democratic in the process as we can, weighing various factors. But that is very important to us, and we've talked a little bit about the demographics that we've been focusing on. And now we are still in the same process. We just got the grant from the city, as we mentioned, with the YBCA. We're doing 30 more murals. So it's been really incredible. I just can't even tell you how many amazing people have signed up. It's just really unreal.
I love it. And so that's really just a call to anyone who's watching. To any artists who are watching who haven't gotten the chance to work with Paint the Void, just put that application in, because you never know if that's just the right fit. I mean, I would just encourage people. It's been great working with you guys. For myself, it's always been a fun experience. So
thanks.
I'm just going to put that out there, artists. There's your opportunity. Go to their website, fill it out.
To add on to that too, is that it does become a conversation with the business owners as well. So we do present several artists to the businesses, and they are involved in the selection process too, based on what their aesthetic for their businesses is. This is a really hard time for businesses, and we sometimes forget that, and they are equally struggling to keep their doors open or have funding to survive, just in the same way that artists are having the same troubles.
So on this kind of tip of equitable arts community, and this is an open question, and just jump in, anyone, and we'll figure out who's going to answer. I know this is so hard in this format, but what direction do you guys think the arts community needs to head into for 2021 and beyond?
Well, there's so many different layers to that.
Yeah.
And different neighborhoods and different communities have different needs. In terms of San Francisco, art artists need funding because it is an incredibly expensive city to live in. And, people in the tech industry really need to support the artists, because if they don't, the artists will have to move and there will be less art in San Francisco. It's already been the case for the last couple of decades that talented artists are moving to LA and New York and London and
It's
Portland.
a very hard city to survive as an artist. But I do feel like one thing that was born out of COVID is realizing that art is essential. And that's something that you guys have really put forward, that artists do deserve a place, do deserve funding. It's been great to see. Anyone else want to kind of ruminate on where the arts community needs to go?
I just quickly want to say, in the realm of having Building 180 and Paint the Void, that a lot of artists are so focused on creation and building that they don't always have the most prolific websites or Instagram handles or crazy CVs. And so something that we really focus on at Building 180 is managing and helping artists and sort of connecting those dots. But again, to go back to what you said, Tracy, saying yes to artists and saying yes to new ideas, I think is for me the most important part about art. Art has never been done before. So you're not going to see a perfect rendering or a perfect idea, but you really just need to believe in and trust artists. I've seen so many grants in this city and around the world go out, and then you're picking these super uber famous artists, which is incredible. But to see something new and with a new perspective, we need new artists and new ideas. And so I think trusting artists and not only relying on the most professional business package, but just really looking at the artwork and again, trusting and believing in things that have never been done before is the most exciting artwork that I've ever seen come out, is when somebody's never done it before. So I would love people to trust people.
Yeah, and that echo chamber of famous on famous on famous is great for those famous people, but it makes it very hard to step into something else. I've been at this business myself for a long time, and it took getting professional, getting, the Instagram handle, getting a website, getting, it's so many arts. And so, but also on top of that encouragement, having people say, oh, I get what you're doing and I encourage you. I'm going to give you a show. I'm going to give you a board. And that's at those moments, artists do really step up. And so having that space for them, I agree. As we go forward, making those spaces, making those opportunities for those who may not have had it is so important. And it's how we're going to stop being stagnant, and it's how we're going to move into the future of art. Yeah.
And with that, I think really pairs the theme of community. I think that we've improved it just in being able to come together more is possible. More opportunity presents itself. Networks grow. You cross-pollinate with all the different creatives, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, you got the music, and you got sculpture, and you got lighting, and you got art and photo. And there's just, I think our community is more than murals. I mean, there's an incredible amount of blood here in the Bay, and I just feel like one thing that I'm reminded, and even as a digital artist, I have my photo community, but being able to kind of mix circles and become more diverse in community, gatherings and experiences and exhibitions and celebrations. I think that being able to meet new people and connect, it's really isolating to be an artist. We're so focused on what we're creating, and you might have a few people you can tap on for support and advice. But I think that's something I've learned with a lot of the new artists who have joined street art this year, is that, they don't know who to turn to when something goes wrong, or if it's something new that they've never dealt with before. How else do you grow through it if you don't have fellows that you can really tap on for support or extra encouragement? I mean, even just in the five of us, one of us at any time of the last, year had like a moment of just like fatigue or just whatever, right? Artist doubt, or just feeling like, how do we make it through this now, and being able to have each other is the only way that we made it through. There's no way I could have done this alone. And I just think that community really matters for creatives. And my hope is that we've started brewing this community, and there's so many people that we haven't even met yet that I can't wait to put them all in a room together and celebrate and meet a whole bunch of new artists, for sure.
I mean, on that note, even just with this initiative, the ReForm initiative, one of the things I love about you all is that you say yes. You know, I brought this idea to you and you guys were just like, yes, and how can we help? How can we make this move forward? And this, I think also when we talk about community and what we need to see in the arts community as we go forward, it's a community, and it's not just the painters, it's not just the muralists, it's not just the gallerists, it is our musicians, it is our photographers, it is our collectors, our art enthusiasts, you know. And so I think, you know, pushing that forward, pushing that as like, don't feel embarrassed to ask a question. You know, I definitely get a lot of questions on Instagram, and they range from like, how do I paint to, you know, how did you get so many followers, or how are you doing these things? And I mean, for one, if you guys are watching this, and I'm sure Paint the Void agrees with me, just ask the question. You know, more often than not, we will take that time to answer it, because I think that community, I believe, is what's going to take us into the future as arts organizations and as artists.
And to ask more than once. If you don't get a response right away, likely that artist or creative person is just busy, or was, you know, if they forget. Like Veronica, she inquired multiple times, and we were like, okay, she's serious. Like, let's get her in here. You know, there's so much. People are busy. Even if they're at home, they're likely dealing with a lot. So ask in a different way. Do outreach via email and DMs, and, you know, and engagement. I think that yeah, you can never do enough outreach.
True. Well, I don't want to take up more of your time. It's almost an hour, so I'm going to open up the floor one more time to each of you. If there's anything else you want to say before we close out this awesome episode, maybe it'll be several episodes. I don't know. We'll see how I edit it. Is there anything else you want to tell artists or art organizations? Anything else you want to talk about? Maybe an upcoming project? Here's your chance.
Well, I think everybody should check out our Instagram. It is at Paint the Void Project. Check out our website. As Veronica mentioned, we have a super cool map where you could see where the murals are. The murals that are grayed out on the map are ones that are down, so they're not physically there anymore. And donate, you know, tweet about us, post about us, share about us, tell your friends, tell your grandma, you know, tell your cat, tell your reporter friends so they can write about us.
Just to touch on that, that's huge too. I did want to say this, and now you just reminded me, it's not always about funding either. It is about sharing. It is about talking about these things. If you don't have the money, that's okay. Money is just one aspect of making something succeed. So yeah, broadcasting, not just Paint the Void, but your buddies. If you've got a buddy who's been at art forever, broadcast their Instagram. How does that hurt you? You know, and especially with Paint the Void, with everything you guys are doing, you know, if you can't donate, donate your time, post about it, talk about it, tell your friends. Anything else from anyone? No? Well, I'm just going to say thank you guys for being available. This has been so fun. I am so excited to see what the next year brings for Paint the Void. You guys have been killing it. And just even, yeah, all the murals that have been coming up. I'm just so impressed. I love the work that's been coming out. Yeah, thank you all.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tracy.